Do you ever feel like work is creeping into every part of your life? Your boss emails you on weekends, clients expect instant replies, or even if you're your own boss, you find yourself working at all hours. Setting boundaries at work can feel impossible. And if you do set them, then guilt kicks in. But here's the truth. You can set boundaries and still be seen as dedicated and capable. And in today's episode, I'm going to show you how, whether you work for someone else or you run your own business. Welcome to Calmly Coping. I'm Tati Garcia, a licensed therapist and coach here to help high achievers stop overthinking and finally feel calm and confident. If that's what you need, then hit subscribe. Let's dive in. I received a comment recently, and this is a topic that is often brought up from listeners, students, and clients. This comment said, "How do you recommend telling your boss that you need boundaries when it comes to work and personal time? I find that oftentimes my bosses will reach out to me about work on the weekends, and I believe that is a contributing factor to my burnout. I feel like I can never disconnect fully." You're definitely not alone in feeling this way. And I think many times, especially nowadays, our work culture is so intertwined with our personal lives because of technology and higher expectations that it can feel difficult to set boundaries. Here are some reasons why it might feel hard. Because we've been conditioned to believe that constantly being available means being a great employee or a successful business owner. And so if you're not constantly available, it can feel like you're dropping the ball. But that belief is ultimately leading to burnout, resentment, and never really feeling like you are off. Here's the thing. Boundaries don't mean you're lazy or uncommitted. They mean that you're working sustainably, taking care of yourself so you can be more present for the things that you love and for your work. And certain areas are catching on. So California proposed the right to disconnect law, and this would protect employees from being expected to answer after-hours emails. Now, unfortunately, this did not pass, but the fact that it was introduced in the first place highlighted that there is a need for improved work-life balance. And the UK did 4-day workweek trials, and the results were that 71% of employees reported reduced burnout and 39% experienced less stress, demonstrating the benefits of structured boundaries. Now, whether or not you can actually do a 4-day work week, the evidence shows that having more disconnect from work actually helps to prevent burnout while increasing productivity at the same time. So the moral of the story is you're not the problem. Hustle culture is, but you can take back control. So first, let's talk about how to set boundaries as an employee. The first step is to figure out where it is that you need a boundary. So is it your boss emailing you at 9 p.m. or on the weekends, like this listener commented? Maybe you're being expected to stay late. Get clear on what it is that's draining you. Then step 2 is to communicate your boundary without the guilt or awkwardness you might feel, because you're doing this because it's important to you and it's a need that you have. It's going to help you to perform better at work. So maybe you might say something like, "I've realized that responding to work messages outside of my set hours is making it harder for me to fully recharge. Moving forward, I'll be available during work hours and will address non-urgent messages first thing in the morning." It's all about communicating it in a way that is clear, expresses your need and why that's important, and also potentially expresses the benefit to the employer. This will allow me to recharge so that I can be more focused and work more deeply or work more efficiently when I am at work. It's not necessary to mention the benefit to the employer, but this can always be something that is a plus because people love to hear how what you are expressing or what change you want to make could potentially benefit them. And step 3 is to stick to the boundary, even if your boss ignores it. So if they keep pushing, gently remind them. If you get emails out of work hours, don't respond to them until you get back to work, of course. And if your workplace is truly toxic, then it might be time to think about long-term career moves if this is something that is truly not being respected. So here's the thing. Unless you have a job that explicitly requires it or you're on call, you don't have to be available 24/7 to be valuable. Clear communication is how you get respect. And if people choose not to respect it, then that's on them, and it's your decision whether you want to continue to allow that behavior. So next, let's talk about how to set boundaries when you're self-employed. So you're the boss, but are you being a good boss to yourself, or are you kind of a jerk? There might be signs that you need better boundaries when you're self-employed. Maybe you feel guilty when you're not working. You check emails on your quote-unquote day off, or you've convinced yourself that working more equals making more money, when really burnout leads to worse results in the long run. So here's how to fix it. Set specific working hours and actually stick to them. Use things like autoresponders or scheduled messages to train clients or customers or whomever you're working with on your availability, and give yourself permission to rest, because burnout won't make you more successful. Sometimes it can be about just giving yourself the permission, because a lot of times there can be those conflicting voices or the inner critic that comes up and says things like you need to work harder, or you're not doing enough, or you're not making enough money. But we need to rest in order to, especially when you're self-employed, to have the bigger picture thinking that allows you to grow your business. If you're constantly working in the business and burning yourself out, then you're ultimately never going to have the space and creativity to see what's not working, to improve upon things that could be better, to create the longer term systems and delegation plans so that you can scale or grow. And when we are in a place of burnout, that can actually keep us stuck and also help to reinforce the idea that we constantly need to be busy just through your behavior and because you're functioning in survival mode. So you may have started your business to have more freedom. I know that's why I did, and I know that's why many self-employed people do. But that freedom comes from boundaries and not from working 24/7. And now, regardless of whether you're employed or self-employed, having a life outside of work is important and makes having boundaries easier. So if work is your entire world and that is how you derive your worth and get your fun and fulfillment, then setting boundaries often feels like you're losing something. That's why it's so important to build things like relationships outside of work. Spend time with family, plan friend dates, or call someone just because. Maybe engaging in hobbies, whether it's reading, painting, playing an instrument, taking a class, whatever it is that lights you up and that you enjoy. Things like just rest and fun. So watching a dumb TV show you enjoy, going for a walk with no agenda, or doing nothing. Those things are so important to help you to recharge and to actually have reasons to stop working, rather than just feeling like, well, I need to rest. But sometimes when we don't have a plan for how we're going to use that time, it's easy to continue to ignore your boundaries. So when you have a fulfilling life outside of work, it's easier to protect your personal time because you're protecting something that actually matters to you. So now let's talk about how to stick to those boundaries that you've set, even when it's hard. Because when you're starting to set boundaries, especially if you have never set them before, people might push back. And that doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It just means that they are used to you behaving in a certain way, and now you're making a change that is potentially having a negative effect on them. That might also result in guilt creeping in for you, making you feel like you're doing something wrong. You can acknowledge that guilt, but don't allow it to make your decisions. You're setting these boundaries for a reason. And regardless of how people respond, these are important things for you. And the more consistently you hold your boundaries, the more people will adjust over time. And it's about sticking to these boundaries, not just through what you're communicating, but also through your actions. Not responding to emails on the weekend if you've decided that you're not going to do that, and waiting until Monday morning, even though that pull might be there, that guilt might be there, the anxiety or the urgency might be there. Stick to that boundary, because we teach people what our boundaries are by following through with them, not just by stating them. So now let's put things into action. I want you to choose one boundary to set this week. So maybe it's no work emails after 7 p.m. Maybe it's actually taking a real lunch break for once away from your desk, or maybe it's setting clear expectations with clients. Whatever it is that works best for you, identify this boundary, identify how you're going to communicate it and put it into action, and then commit to it without apologizing. Because boundaries are important for you to respect your time, energy, and mental health, and nobody else can determine that for you except for you. So if you want more in-depth help with setting boundaries, stopping overthinking, and feeling more confident, then you can check out my free training, Achieve a Calm Mind, Balanced Life, and Empowered Confidence in 90 Days. If you want to stop feeling overwhelmed and start creating work-life balance that actually works, this training is for you. You can check it out by going to calmlycoping.com/workshop or clicking on the link in the description. And if you found this episode helpful, then please share it with a friend or a colleague who needs to hear it. So some final thoughts. Work doesn't have to take over your entire life, but if you don't set boundaries, then it will. You deserve a life that feels balanced, fulfilling, and yours. And that starts with protecting your time. And remember, the people who respect you the most will respect your boundaries. While you wait for the next episode, I have other episodes on calming your mind, improving work-life balance, and feeling more confident from within, so be sure to check out these episodes here. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and until next time, be calm.